You're listening to SM Media, the #1 place for exclusive content.
Hi everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of All Time 11 right here on SM Media. I'm Scott McPike, delighted to be your host as always. A very special guest in this week's episode. I'm joined by the former Kilmarnock, former Motherwell, former Hibs defender, current boss of Drogheda United, Tim Clancy. Tim, it's an absolute pleasure to welcome you on the show. Thanks very much for joining me.
Cheers, Scott. Looking forward to having a chat for the next few minutes.
Brilliant. How's everything been?
Yeah, it's been good. Obviously a bit strange with the lockdown, the restrictions. I'm doing the pro license at the minute, so I'm getting used to these Zoom calls. And obviously with the no crowds in the stadiums, a little bit different as well. But listen, needs must. Have to make sure everyone's kept safe, and hopefully the restrictions get lifted and get to see fans back in the football stadia throughout Europe.
Definitely. How weird's it been, obviously, being a manager during this time?
It's probably all right because I can actually shout. They can't have an excuse now saying they can't hear me. So it's not too bad getting information on the pitches. But yeah, listen, you like to see the fans in the stadium. And a couple of years ago, we lost in the second last league game of the season to Shelburne, and it was a full house at our place. And then we ended up winning the league last year to get promoted. And there was no fans there, so you sort of miss out on moments like that. But listen, it is what it is.
Definitely. How are you finding management?
Loving it, yeah. I'm loving it. The opportunity came up then when I came back here, obviously at 30 years of age. I left Scotland. And then this opportunity came up at 33 to become a manager. So I retired at 33 to jump into that. It's something that I wanted to do for quite some time. And I started my badges. I had my A license at that stage. And listen, it's something that I dived at. And there's only 20 jobs in the country over here. So
yeah,
professional leagues or semi-professional leagues, and there's 10 in each league. So it's not something that you can really turn down. And listen, I didn't know much about management or the league or the players that I was going into, but you just have to grab it and then make the most of it. And thankfully, like, we're 3.5 years in now to the role of Drogheda, and we're doing all right. Brilliant.
We'll talk about your playing career before we move into your team. You obviously started off in Ireland and then got a spell at Millwall. What was that kind of development like in your early career?
Yeah, it was strange because over here, there's the Dublin District Schoolboys League. The DDSL is the big league in Ireland, and there's before any national underage teams for the League of Ireland clubs. So that's where all the players went to play in Dublin. And listen, it's quite serious, but it's still only a couple of days a week. And then I done my leaving cert over here, which is the equivalent to the GCSEs or whatever. And then I went to Millwall just on my 18th birthday, and that was like just an eye opener. That club was mad, absolutely mental, like. But in a good way, like, there was about 10 Irish fellas at the club, and I thought that every professional football club was like that, but from there to the end of my career, I've never experienced that like it again. The atmosphere between the relationship between even the first team players and the youth team was very, very close. Like, everybody's involved in it, and it was brilliant. Like, it was a really, really good place to go and play your trade. Like.
Brilliant. You obviously made the move to Scotland with Kilmarnock. How did that move come about? Do you remember?
Yeah, I was when I was at Millwall, I was the reserve team manager who was a first team coach underneath Mark McGee. When Mark McGee was there, was Big Joe McLaughlin.
Right.
Joe played for, I don't know, hundreds of games for Chelsea. It's one of their all-time appearance makers in Watford and Charlton and a few other clubs as well. So I left Millwall and I played non-league for a couple of seasons, and Joe actually rang me speaking to Jim Jeffries, and they were looking for defenders, and he put my name forward, and that's how I got sorted, where I went to Kilmarnock and played in the bounce game, and Jim gave us a contract then off the back of that. So it was through Joe McLaughlin that I got up to Scotland.
Brilliant. What was your 4 years like at Kilmarnock? What were your favourite memories?
Well, it was funny, like, because I went in I went in just after the window had closed in the January, and it was when they were going for I think it was the CAS Cup against Hibs, when they beat 5-1 in the final.
Right,
so that was my first month or so there. Like, and I was only training with the team; I wasn't involved at all. So, but to be around that and going from playing a non-league in England to going to be around like a massive game, and obviously in Hamden with a lot of fans at it, get a little taste from the side, from the stand. Look at that, it was good. Like, and then obviously you see the standard of player and the quality and the fitness and the professionalism was on a completely different level than what I've been playing at previously. And then listen, I loved it. I loved my time at Kilmarnock. To this day, it's still the club that I spent the most time with in my career. So I spent 4.5 years there, and it was very enjoyable.
Brilliant. We'll make a wee start on your team. Are you going with, what formation are you going with in your lineup?
I'm gonna go for a 4-3-2-1. Funny enough, it's one that Mixie Patalainen used when I was at Killy, and it's to fit in two players that are in the team. So I'll stick with that one just to get them two in it. But yeah, so that's the formation I'm going with as well. And most of the players, there's only one lad there that I played with in Ireland that's in the team, but
okay,
the rest are all ones that would have played with in the SPL.
Brilliant. We'll make a wee start. Are you going with obviously who you got between the sticks? Who have you got next for your all-time 11?
I'm gonna go with Darren Randolph that I played with. Taz, obviously, listen, you see, we went to Motherwell, obviously, then off the back, I think Charlton, down in England, they need to play first team games, and for the year that I spent with him at Motherwell, he was brilliant. Like, and listen, you see, we went on to Birmingham and West Ham and Middlesbrough, and back to West Ham again, and the caps he's accumulated for the Irish senior squad that shows the pedigree that he has. And I picked him just ahead of probably Alan Combe, who was brilliant at Kilmarnock. And Alan Manus was excellent as well when I was at St. Johnstone for a short spell there. I think probably Coleman probably feels he probably should have got Scotland recognition a lot more than he possibly did, because he was playing brilliantly when I first went to Killy. But listen, obviously it's a couple of other very good keepers around that time as well. So, but I thought Coleman was absolutely excellent. And then Alan Manus as well is obviously he's a full international with Northern Ireland, and he was very, very good when he was at St. Johnstone, and he's still playing now at 39 years of age, fit as ever, for Shamrock Rovers over here in Dublin.
Definitely brilliant. We'll move into your defence. We'll start off with your right back. Who's in there?
Again, there's another, like, Dave McPike was one that I was thinking about. I think he's probably, of all the players I played with in my career, Cup ties probably the most underrated player I've ever played with. Until you actually play with him and you see him on a daily basis in training, that he's frightening how good he is, how underrated he is. Never gives the ball away, or never did give the ball away. We're still talking like as if we're still playing, like, but no, he never gave the ball away. He was defensively very good and all, and very, very good on the ball as well. I think he's massively underrated. And Jamie Hamill was another one that when I was at Killy, he slotted in at right back when he was possibly a midfielder, and he got so many assists from there. But the one I've gone with is Tom Haley.
Okay.
At Motherwell as well. Again, I think probably just because he has them moments where we had a great season at Motherwell, and he popped up with a few free kicks, and he was heavily involved in a lot of goals from play, and also from set pieces. And again, you see that he sort of took a little different career path by going to Poland and whatnot, and he's won a couple of league titles over there as well.
Yeah, he's done well there, yeah.
Done very, very well. So I'll stick Tom in at right back.
Brilliant. Who's in the other side? Who's at left back? This
was another one as well. There's a toss-up between two of them. Listen, Ryan McGivern was at Hibs. It was a full international, and he was a good player, Ryan. But I've edged towards wee Hookie at Killy, Gary Hay. Hookie obviously played a lot of games for Kilmarnock, and again, for the little size of him, he was unbelievable on the ball, and he sort of changed his game, and I think he won a League Cup with Kilmarnock playing in centre midfield against Celtic and Hampden, so he was able to develop his game a little bit, and I picked him just ahead of Stevie Hamill. And we Hamill, like, you think about the amount of games that he played before he was 30 was frightening. Like, he must have played about 30 or 40 games a season for the space of about 12 years or so. He had massive amount of games before he turned 30 or 31. And again, he's another one probably similar to Cup tie that very underrated until you actually play with Hammy as well.
Yeah.
Very, very solid, and obviously was at Motherwell for a hell of a long time, and I know he's still there now in a coaching capacity. So it was a toss-up between him and Hookie, but just for the longevity that I played with Hookie as well, extra years that I know him, that I'll stick him in at left back.
So Gary Hay makes it left back. Who's in its left centre back?
Left centre half, I've gone with again another one from Motherwell when I was there was Sean Hutchinson.
Okay.
Hutchie was only a kid when I was at Motherwell. He's 20, 21 when he's playing. He's a big lad and really aggressive. I suppose what you want from your centre half, like a big aggressive fella. And he was quick as well. And then you see the career that Hutchie's had since he left Motherwell. He's gone down. He's played in the Championship, I think, for the last maybe 10 years or so. And he sort of, again, like, it was probably because he was so young there that he caught the eye. Like, he was only a young lad and he was a big boy. He was quick. He was aggressive. He was tackle. Listen, probably not as a ball playing centre half, but he was very, very good all the same. And I stuck him in probably just ahead of Michael Nelson, who was on the other end of his career when I played with McKilly and then at Hibs as well. Big Nels was a similar type of player to Hutchie. But just, again, it's not a really, really good player. And I think talking about games, I think Nelson's played maybe 700-800 games in his career. I think he only retired last year or the year before, which is phenomenal for the age of him.
Yeah, definitely. Who completes your defence? Who's at right centre back?
This one, it's a bit of a. I think this fella's going into the team more or less. I think he's probably underachieved, and the potential that he had was frightening. And he didn't. He retired very, very young, and went down a completely different path. But I've gone for Ryan O'Leary.
Okay.
When I was at Killy, I think probably of all the players that I played with in my whole career, he probably had the best attributes out of everyone. Probably the quickest player I've ever played with.
Okay.
And I played with Ivan Sproul and Chris Humphreys and a few others, but Ryan was so quick for a centre half. Really, really athletic. Strong boy, big boy as well. So just for whatever reason, he just fell out of love with football and walked away. And it's a shame because I thought that he'd all the attributes to go and play at the right top level. Like, and you've seen some players going into England from Scotland and playing in the Premier League and whatnot. And I think Ryan had all that potential as well. It just, for whatever reason, didn't work for him.
Yeah.
And I picked him just ahead of Jazza, big James McPike. Who, again, listen, Jazz would be the captain of every team he's probably ever played for, and rightly so. And to see him win the playoff against Killy there the other day was brilliant to see, because you know what type of fella Jazz is. And I think he's going to go on and have a phenomenal managerial career as well.
Brilliant. Great defence. We'll touch about your time at Motherwell quickly before we move on to your midfield. Obviously, you spent 4 years at Kilmarnock and moved to Motherwell. Like, how did you find kind of change leaving Kilmarnock to go to Motherwell? Like, do you remember how that kind of happened?
Yeah, listen. When Mixu came in, like, it's funny, like, because I look back at my time at McKilly, and probably the best manager I've ever played under was probably Mixu Patline.
Yeah, every player at Kilmarnock says that. Every player that was at Kilmarnock under Mixu says that.
But the funny thing about it is I never played under Mixu.
Right, okay.
Frustrating time for me for 6 months. I was suspended for the first 2 games of the season, and Hammer went in a right back and was excellent. And he played there until Mixu left to get the finish job.
Yeah.
But just the way he trained and the way he did everything, he was really, really good at Killy. And then I think the second half of the season, I played a lot of games towards the end of the year under Kenny Shields. And again, another absolute gentleman, Kenny is. And done very well. He's just very unlucky with the way his career went. Kenny won a trophy at Kilmarnock. The first one, I think, was in 17 years or so. He done really well. But they started next year then. Danny Bowes came in from Holland. I think it was Den Haag or somewhere he was at. And Kenny was playing him at right back. And I wasn't really getting a game for the first 4 or 5 games of the season. And the opportunity, unfortunately, for Stephen Saunders, he ruptured his Achilles. And Motherwell were looking for and my name got put in there. And listen, when they said that they were interested, I was delighted to go. And it's the way football is. It's weird, like, because maybe for Scottish lads that are living somewhere and they're local to a team that they don't want to leave, but for Irish fellas that are living over there, anywhere in the UK is away from home anyway. So it didn't really make a difference to me where I was playing. But it was sad to leave Kilmarnock because I was there for a good while, and but then again, getting the opportunity to play at Motherwell, and I think in that season I played 30 games and we had a very, very good season. I think we finished 3rd behind Celtic and Rangers, and I think it was the highest points tally at the time they ever got in the SPL. So it was really, really good. It was really, really, really enjoyable time there.
And what was your time like at Motherwell? Like, who was obviously a kind of really good team you went into as well, that kind of done really well and got really high up the table? Like, what were your memories for your time at Motherwell?
Every memory I had from Motherwell was brilliant. From Flo doing the media at the time and always the chief executive there, Alan at the minute, and there was Stuart McCall, who again was an absolute brilliant manager. He was really, really good manager, and he'd have a little rattle if you lost the game, and then 10 minutes after, in the dressing room, he'd say, "Well, that's forgotten about." And he'd a brilliant ability to, no matter what happened on a Saturday, and was said in the dressing room, come Monday morning, clean slate, face pan again, lovely smile on it, and then bang, back to go for the next week, and nothing ever sort of dragged into the following week. And now it helped that we were winning quite a lot of games that year. So and again, we had a really good team, but probably the biggest thing was we avoided a lot of injuries that year at Motherwell. And it was the same, maybe 14, 15 players playing every week in the bulky games, which probably gave us that little continuity to just roll into the next week, and everybody sort of knew what they were doing. And you had Big Higgy up top, and you had Murph on one wing, and you'd probably Chris Humphreys on the other, and you had Nicky Law in the middle with Geno and Laz, and you'd Stevie Hamill, you'd yourself, Craigs or Hutchie at the back, and a couple of young lads, and then you had Tom Hakely and then Daz in goal. So it was more or less the same team every other week, and that sort of probably helped us have a great season that year. And again, I've only fond memories from Motherwell. Great little club it is.
Brilliant. We'll move into your midfield. How are you operating your midfield? Are you going with a sit-arm two further forward?
I'm going with, well, probably two sitters, and two more very similar. Two good-looking fellas as well. It's not a bad-looking team, by the way. That's probably why a couple of the big nails couldn't go into that team. You take the old good-looking side of it down a few things. So, but no, I'm going with three in the middle. Like two of them are very similar players, and then the other one's more of a box-to-box player. But the one I'm going with sitting is the only one that I played with in Ireland. I only played with him briefly at Shamrock Rovers, but Stephen McPhail, who was at Leeds United for, I think, that run they got to the Champions League semi-final back in whatever it was, and Cardiff City for a long time as well. But what a player! Like, just so comfortable on the ball, and you give it to him under pressure, and he'd take it. And I suppose because he has that left foot as well, really, really cultured left foot on him as well, that it just looks a lot better. And he'll take it in, he'll little ones around the corner. And I played at Macca when he was 35 at that stage, I think it was, and he wasn't the most mobile, but he was still brilliant, like head and shoulders above anyone else in Ireland at that stage. Playing in the League of Ireland, you could still see the class shining through as well.
Yeah, brilliant. Who's in the left hand side of that three?
So the left of it is the other one that I think, as in terms of midfielders in Scotland that I played with, this fella's just really, really exceptionally good on the ball, but he could mix it as well. He's a few little tackles flying in, and Robbie Keane that keep getting thrown up on Twitter every time an Old Firm game come up, whatever. But Kevin Thompson, when I was at Hibs, brilliant. Like Tomo's the same. He just lend him the ball, no matter where he was on the pitch, no matter who was around. We just give it to him, and frightening range of passing, little ones around the corner, breaking lines of passes. But he had that little nasty side of him as well, the other side that he could put a tackle in. And I think when he left Rangers, he had a great time at Rangers. I think he had a very frustrating time down in Middlesbrough. He'd, I think, a hairline fracture that kept on breaking. I think 4 or 5 times maybe he had the same injury that just kept him prolonging a spell on the sideline. That probably sort of hindered his time down there. But again, he came back to Hibs after that then, and he was brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And I see he's after taking over at Keelty Hearts there as well now. So listen, I wish him all the best in there, and I've no doubt that he'll be very, very good. Yeah,
definitely. Who completes the three in midfield? Who's on the right hand side?
The other one as well is Wee Bryso, Craig Bryson at Killy. Again, he came into Killy from Clyde, a young lad, and listen, he just went straight into the team and played every week, the most energy in the pitch. Every time there was a fitness test, he was always the one that was outlasting everyone else, and he was the fittest player I probably ever played with. Brilliant lad. And again, he could do everything. He could take the ball and he'd keep it simple. He wouldn't try anything spectacular, but he'd never give it away. And he used to fly into tackles as well. He used to love that side of the game. And he'd get forward as well. He'd make the box and he'd up and down all day. And again, you see when he goes down to Derby, and I think in the 7 or 8 years he was down there, he was player of the year 4 times or something, I think. So
did you see that at Kilmarnock, that he would go on and do really as well as he did in England?
I think when people say championship in England, they probably think the physicality side of things and the physical side of things and how Bryce would have coped. But fitness wise, he was so fit. and he'd so much energy and so many legs. But he wasn't for a little fella. He's very wiry, and he'd fly at the tackles, and that side of the game, you wouldn't shirk responsibility for flying at the tackles and doing the other side of it. And listen, he went down there and he was brilliant. Not many Derby players scored a hat-trick against Notts Forest, so
Definitely.
In a massive derby that is down there as well. For him to get a hat-trick in that one, like it showed the quality that he had as well, and he's still playing now, kicking about, winning cups with St. Johnstone there last week, so which was great to see.
Yeah, definitely. Really good midfield as well. Obviously, after Motherwell, you went to Hibs. Your best memory was scoring against Celtic, but did injuries play a big part in your time at Hibs?
Yeah, well, see, the funny thing was, Pat Fenlon was the manager of Hibs, and I spoke to Pat, and
did he know you before you?
No, I didn't know Pat from back home, but
okay.
Listen, funny enough, since then I've had a really good relationship with Pat, and I think when people look back at Pat's time at Hibs, you're seeing the 5-1 against Hearts, which is a huge result in the history of the two clubs. And then there was a couple of bad defeats in Europe, but I think he gets a hard time for it because his actual overall time at Hibs, he got into 2 cup finals. When he left Hibs, we were 5th in the SPL and nowhere near a relegation fight. And then Terry Butcher came in, I think, won 1 game or 2 games out of 21 or something it was, and ended up going down in the playoff to Hamilton. So I think Pat's probably time there is listen, I'm not going to say it probably looks worse than what it is, but the result against Hearts in the final was probably the biggest game in the two clubs' history, and to lose it was never going to be good. But I think that probably clouds the overall job that Pat did at the Hibs.
Yeah. See, obviously, the injuries, how big did they play a part in your spell at Hibs?
I was injured from the second I got there, literally to the second I left. And again, listen, I'm never going to be a player that will ever make anyone else's 1 to 11. And at very best, I was an average player in the SPL, and I got the most out of whatever attributes I had. And for me to be playing quite well, I'd need to be fit and at least at it and training every day and whatnot. But from the very start, I had an issue with me. I had osteitis pubis. The pubic bone was inflamed, and I'm allergic to anti-inflammatories, which is probably the biggest thing that you do to treat that. So I couldn't take anti-inflammatories, and I'd just be icing my groins 24/7 as much as I could. And it got to a stage then where I was training maybe on a Friday and playing on a Saturday for Hibs, and wouldn't see me then on the training pitch till the following Friday. And it even got to a stage in some games where at half time I had an exercise bike in the dressing room just to paddle for the 15 minutes, because if I stopped I wouldn't be able to get going again. And that's probably the most frustrating time in my career, because Hibs was obviously it's the biggest club I've ever played for. It's the biggest opportunity I ever had, and to not be able to do myself justice, should I say, or to be able to at least have full crack at it was frustrating for me. And but again, listen, the privilege of playing for Hibs and getting the chance to play in a couple of Edinburgh derbies, it's something that I'll remember for the rest of my life.
Yeah, definitely. St Johnstone was the other club you spent time at when you were in Scotland. What happened there?
Again, listen, I just left Hibs, and I come back to Ireland, and I was training back here at Shamrock Rovers for a few weeks, and then Tommy Wright needed someone to come in as defensive cover, and again my name got thrown forward, and he said, well, how's he getting on? Because I hadn't played much football, and I went over and I played in the bounce game and done a little bit of training, and then he says, listen, a short-term deal at the end of the year. And again, that was brilliant, because you got into a club that were doing really well, and you were in the cup and they were flying, and it's a great atmosphere, and it was very similar to my time at Motherwell. It's a club where the players were all very close, and a really, really good atmosphere, and I really enjoyed my time at St. Johnstone. It was really, really good, and listen, it was unfortunate that with the last training session at McDermott Park before the Scottish Cup final ruptured me Achilles.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
and again, that was just the way I was with cup finals in my whole career, that whenever I joined the club, it seemed to be just after a cup final they were in, and it was the month after. And if I left the club, they'd go on to a cup final just after I'd left, or as they go on to win a cup. And to miss out on that one, listen, I wouldn't have played in the game, but I possibly would have been on the bench, and to experience that would have been brilliant. But listen, it's a part of football, and I think going into management now, it's given me probably an added advantage where when lads are injured, I know exactly how they felt because I think in the 7 years I was in Scotland, probably 3 years of them I was injured for. So I had a lot of injuries in my career, so I know how the players are feeling. I probably relate to it a little bit and have a bit of empathy towards them.
Yeah, definitely. We'll move into your final three positions. We'll start. Are you going with a left attacking midfield and a right one? Is that the way you're going?
It's probably two number 10s sitting in behind the striker. So, and again, these two played at Kilmarnock in that formation under Mixu, and the first one is Little Medi Teo.
Okay.
Again, there's a kid that just Medi was brilliant when he came in. Like for a foreign lad to come in, he just took to a duck to water with the banter, and he used to travel from Edinburgh to Glasgow for training with Gary Locke. So he'd every swear word in his locker before he could say hello and thank you and please and everything. So, but he was brilliant. He really mixed into the dressing room, and he got involved in all the banter, and he was really, really good around the place. But ability wise, like I think giving him a football on a pitch, like he could do really, really good things with it. Like again, take it in tight areas, and he'd do a back heel and a little trick or a flick or a drag, and he'd make a fool of a couple of players, and all of a sudden he's away, like with his low centre of gravity. And maybe he could have ended up with a few more goals and a few more assists in his game, but just for an attacking player to have in your team, you'd be playing games behind him, and you'd be looking halfway through, just going, wow, like it's just frightening. And I suppose he started making regular appearances on the showboat and on Soccer AM, and Saturdays you'd see something got to do with him on it, and he got to the stage where he's doing that much, they actually come up and film the little skills school thing.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
just with him alone. Like so, yeah, he's the one that's sitting in it, and as one of the number 10s, and probably the other one that like I played with that's not in the team that I should mention is Alan Johnson Sticky. Now Sticky was right at the end of his career when I went to Kilmarnock, and but again, wow, like ability was. I suppose that's what he called him, Sticky, because the ball just would not move from his foot, like, and frightening how good he was. And that was later in his career, probably when he lost the yard of pace and whatnot. So I can only imagine how good Sticky was when he was in full tilt in his 20s, whatever. And but a brilliant footballer as well. So I thought I should mention him because he was ridiculously good and very good as well with the younger lads. Because I was a young lad and I went to Killy, and the advice he'd give you and whatnot, like I thought he was a really top pro, and for the career that he had, a very humble fella as well, which was the first thing that I noticed about him as well. So, but the other number 10 is, listen, this fella's the best player I've ever played with. I had no business being on the same pitch as him, never mind in the same team as him. He was frightening, which is Alexei Eremenko.
Yeah, there's no surprise there.
He's just head and shoulders above anyone I've ever played with. And again, another fella who, when he came to Killy, he wasn't really fit. I think, but then again, it's probably the other side of that is if he was very fit and in the top, he wouldn't have been at Killy anyway. So
yeah,
but, now there's one that like he was doing stuff with the football and more or less his passing. He never really done any tricks around, but just his passing range, like he had that one where he'd dribble it inside and he just chop with the outside of his foot and then just absolutely fizz a ball in between the fullback and the centre half right onto someone's foot. Like the weight of pass was frightening. Delivery from set pieces, he'd score goals. He was I had no business playing the same team as him, to be honest with you. He was brilliant. Like he was by far the best player I've ever played with.
And were you surprised? Like obviously, he was at Kilmarnock, were you surprised he wasn't playing like a better level, at a bigger club? Like, what do you think was the reason for that?
Well, listen, I remember being in his company a couple of times when agents rang him, and I know there was in the Premier League, Bolton, Sunderland, Sheffield United, I think at the time, and they rang, and he was also was on a lot of money at the club he was at, Metlis Kharkiv or whatever. And you pay very little tax out there, football, and I don't know how it works, but clubs did want to sign him, and he says, "What's the deal?" They said, "Listen, it's nowhere near what you're on." He says, "Well, I'm not going." Like, and I don't think he like. Because I remember I had a conversation with him and Gary Hay one day, and Hookie said, like, it's the Premier League in England, though. And he says, I don't care, like, I want to get paid, like, and that's what he said, like, and I do think that Celtic and Rangers inquired about him as well after his first, at Killy, but then again, I think they seen the wages, and I think after tax or before tax to get what he was getting in Ukraine, I think a club would have to pay him over 30 grand a week. So he was on like obviously very, very good money. So financially, Celtic and Rangers were never gonna pay that. Like, but like this dude again. Listen, I remember Hookie saying that Stevie Naismith rang him after a game. We played in Ibrox and just said, "Who is that fella?" Like, all the Rangers players were talking, saying he was absolutely brilliant.
Yeah.
Like it would have been similar against Celtic. Like you see players that can get moves from like your Motherwells, your Hibs, St. Johnstone to the old firm, and it's because they show that they're good players. But when Losa played against Celtic and Rangers, he was like, he even looked a lot better than most of their players. Like he was just brilliant. Like he was unbelievable. And I think the type of character he was, like he was so laid back and he just chilled out, and which it was a bit intriguing as well, like the way he came over, the Russian fella playing for Finland, and he had a little bit mystery about him. But yeah, and then listen, the second spell he came back for Killy again. He was probably a little bit out of shape, but again he still showed his quality for the time he was there. And yeah, so he's the best player I've ever played with, and there's no surprise that he's sitting in there.
Yeah, I think it's hard to disagree with that. I think if you ask any Kilmarnock fan, he's probably one of the best players they've seen. Who leads the line? Who's the man scoring the goals in that team?
Listen, there's a few that I've played with. Macca at St. Johnstone was one of the Steve McLean's. Like again, he falls into the Dave Mackay and the Stevie Hammer bracket, where I don't think he gets appreciated by opposition fans or other clubs. But when you're playing with him, he's ridiculously how good he is at holding the ball up and getting goals, and how good he is in the air, and how intelligent he was in regards to the game as well. He was brilliant. And then you had Paul Heffernan, who I played with at Killian at Hibs, who was just a goal scorer, playing on the shoulder, and he sniffed things out. And then a big Higgy at Motherwell, who scored a barrel load of goals and ended up getting, I think, Player of the Year one year with 27 or 28 SPL goals. But listen, the one leading the line is the best finisher I've ever seen. And listen, there's no surprise he scored over 200 goals in his career, whatever it is. Lee Griffiths.
Yeah, I thought he would have been there as well.
Sparky, again, there's a young lad who just absolutely adores football. Like, he just lives to play football and just to score goals. And even in training, was the exact same. Everything he hit, just side net and laces, just bang, side netting. And listen, he was scoring that year I played with my Hibs. He was scoring free kicks from 40 yards.
Yeah.
I think he scored, 20, maybe 29 goals or 30 goals that year for Hibs. Brilliant. And that's for a fella who supported the club as well, and he knew how much it meant to him. But Sparky's one of them ones as well that in the big moments in a game, like, you just knew that he was going to do something. When you needed something, and like the semi-final against Falkirk, we were 3-0 down at half time, and we ended up getting to extra time. We draw 3-3, and then he scores, like, I don't know what's 115 minutes gone, whatever it is, and takes a corner. He retrieves the clearance, and he just, the cleanest strike you'll ever see, like, just smashes one into the far corner from 25 yards out. And just all the big moments, you knew that he was going to show up and produce, like. And listen, to see him obviously going out to Celtic, and I think he scored over 100 goals for Celtic, and I don't know how many assists. He's 90 something. He was only 5 or 6 away from joining Jimmy Johnston and Henrik Larsson being the only other players to get 100 assists and 100 goals for Celtic. So
yeah,
managed to get over that line. God, he's in some company, like.
Yeah, definitely. Brilliant team. Is there any players that just missed out you want to give a wee mention to?
Yeah, there was a few there. Like, you'd look at, listen, if I played with wingers, you would have had, listen, Jamie Murphy was brilliant at Motherwell. Murphy was absolutely brilliant. And again, he went on to play for Brighton and Sheffield United down south, and back up over Rangers and Hibs, and really, really good player. Didn't do any tricks or flicks or anything like that, but he'd give him the ball, he'd look after it, and 1v1, he had amazing ability to slow a player down, and just as they slowed down, he'd just drag it past them, and he'd be gone. Like, he was very, very good. And again, Mikey O'Halloran at St. Johnstone was, when I was there, 2014, when they won the cup that time, he was just up from Newcastle, I think it was. Unbelievable, like, the pace and direct running at players, and he was very good. You have Chris Humphreys, who was very, very quick. And then in the middle of the pitch, I think Keith Lasley was excellent at Motherwell, and obviously the career Laz had, and down to Plymouth and back up again to Motherwell. And Now he's doing very well in his coaching career, and probably Nicky Law as well in that midfield was very good. He's still playing over in America now at the minute, Nicky, I think he is, and he left Motherwell, go to Rangers and Bradford as well. So he was a very, very good midfielder as well. But no, listen, there's a few good players in there, and a few I didn't deserve to play with, but I was happy that I did, and I've good memories in doing so.
Brilliant. Obviously you're in management now. What's your kind of ambitions with Drogheda? Where do you think you can get up to the kind of top of the table?
Listen, we got promoted last season. We won the league, and we'd be part-time, over there. Over here, it's quite intense. We'd be in on Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, play Friday, and then they probably do a recovery session over the weekend. So the only difference we train in the evenings, because a lot of my lads would be working or studying or not, and budget wise we'd be one of the lowest in the league. So at the minute we're sitting in the mid-season break, we're sitting in 4th out of 10, which is phenomenal for us. We've had a great start. Again, the type of players that I'm signing are young lads, with no disrespect to Drogheda, they don't want to be a Drogheda. They want to use it as a stepping stone, and they've all got good attitude, and they're a very fit team. And we've probably got 3 or 4 players that possibly move on now to other clubs and hopefully over to the UK, if given the opportunity. And for us this season, let's try and stay in the Premier Division, and then see if we can take the club forward. And just talking of going full time maybe next year or the year after, and putting structures in place like that. And for myself personally, I want to get back over to professional football in the UK, and to be given an opportunity to manage at 33 was one that I couldn't turn down. And I'm sitting there now with over 100 games under my belt, so I'm getting more experience. And listen, we've won a league in the first division, and it mightn't be the biggest level in the world, but still pressure games for the players that are there. So it's just gaining all that experience, and hopefully then I can get my foot in the door when I finish the pro license next year. It might open up a few chances for me across the water or America or somewhere else.
Brilliant. Tim, it's been an absolute pleasure to be on the show, mate. I really appreciate you coming on. It's been a pleasure.
No, listen, I really enjoyed it, and even doing it the team there, it brought back a lot of good memories. And obviously my kids lived in Scotland for a long time, and we have a lot of fond memories over in Scotland, and it's certainly made a lot of good friends as well, and it's a place that we hold close to our heart as well. And hopefully one day I might get the opportunity to go back there as a manager.
Yeah, definitely. Best of luck with your spell at Drogheda, and we hope to see you back in Scottish football in the near future.
That'd be good, Scott. Thanks so much for having me on, pal.
Brilliant.
Thanks.